Indiana Jones didn't follow the rules. It bullwhipped them into oblivion. Scripts got tossed. Props caught fire. A crew member nearly got crushed. This wasn't just a movie. It was chaos in a fedora. These are 20 wild facts about Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the bonus? It belongs in a padded room. Crack your whip. Keep your hat on. This ride's about to go full tilt. Fact number 1. The first Indiana Jones wasn't Harrison Ford. On the first day of casting, everything crumbled. Nothing went as planned. Tom Selleck had the look, the charisma, and the studio's full confidence. With Magnum PI on the rise, executives were convinced he'd be the perfect Indy. CBS gave the initial go-ahead and everyone relaxed. He looked the part. Everyone believed in him. But then reality kicked in. As pre-production ramped up, CBS suddenly pulled back. They refused to let Selleck out of his TV contract. Spielberg and Lucas were left with a massive role and no actor. The production teetered on the edge, a major casting collapse before a single frame was shot. They thought he was ready to ride into legend. He was stuck in Hawaii filming Magnum. Spielberg didn't panic. He made one call to George Lucas. Lucas didn't hesitate, determined. "Bring back Solo," he said, and just like that, Harrison Ford, who had never been the first choice, became the face of one of cinema's most iconic heroes. The rest? Pure movie history. Fact number 2. Spielberg used a real boulder to chase Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford. No stunt double, no CGI, no tricks, just him, a narrow set, and a 300-pound rolling fiberglass boulder coming straight at his face. "Can you outrun this thing 6 times?" Spielberg asked. Ford didn't flinch. He didn't need the full plan. He just said yes. The boulder was mounted on hidden tracks for safety, but it moved fast. Too fast. And Harrison had to hit his mark exactly or risk being crushed by what looked like the world's deadliest prop. By the 3rd take, Ford's shirt was soaked in sweat. By the 6th, he misstepped, tripped, and barely missed getting rolled over. That look of fear in the final shot? 100% real. Spielberg kept it in the movie. No one on set clapped when the scene ended. They just exhaled. Fact number 3. Indy's iconic chin scar is 100% real. That rugged scar on Harrison Ford's chin, not makeup, real injury. He got it in his early 20s trying to fasten his seatbelt. While driving, Spielberg loved it so much he wrote it into the character's origin in Last Crusade. It made Indy look like a guy who'd seen things and survived them. If that scar gave Indy character, just wait till you hear what gave him the hat. Fact number 4. The hat had to be sat on. Indy's fedora didn't come straight off the rack. It had to be aged. Costume designer Deborah Nadoolman literally sat on it, stomped it, even crumpled it like a fast food wrapper until it looked lived in. Why? Spielberg said it had to feel like it had been through every tomb, tunnel, and temple. No shine, just grit. Because no hero should look like he just left Macy's. Fact number 5. The sword fight that never happened. That famous scene where Indy shoots the showboating swordsman? Total improvisation. The script had a full fight, but Ford had food poisoning so bad he could barely stand. Instead of dueling, he just pulled the gun and fired. The whole crew cracked up. Spielberg kept it. The audience went wild. The next fact involves 7,000 snakes, 1 terrified crew, and 1 very greasy solution. Fact number 6. The snake pit stank like garlic. The Well of Souls had 7,000 snakes, but they wouldn't move. Solution? Rub garlic oil on Ford's boots. It worked. The snakes chased the scent, and the scene came to life. The downside? The set reeked for days. Ford later joked it smelled like cursed lasagna. Indy hates snakes, but garlic? That's the real villain. Fact number 7. Indy's punch sounds are Thanksgiving dinner. The bone-crunching punches in Raiders? They weren't Foley magic, they were a baseball bat smashing a pile of leather jackets stuffed with raw chicken. Sound designer Ben Burt wanted each hit to feel chunky and physical, like it rattled your teeth. And it worked. Every punch sounded like a bar fight inside a butcher shop. The result? Audiences flinched, and Spielberg smiled. If you thought that sounded messy, wait until you find out what melted a Nazi's face off. Fact number 8. Melting faces were made of jelly and heat lamps. The gruesome face-melting scene at the end of Raiders was old-school movie magic.
See? Movie magic.
They built a wax replica of the actor's head, layered it in gelatin, and slowly melted it with a heat gun and a row of hair dryers. The footage was sped up to create the horrifying effect. It was so realistic, Spielberg briefly considered toning it down. Instead, he added sound effects made from sizzling bacon, because nothing says ancient spiritual judgment like a breakfast soundtrack. Fact number 9. Spielberg ran out of money for the monkey. The Nazi saluting monkey in Cairo wasn't cheap. Trainers charged extra for that single raised paw, but even then it wasn't working. So they used grapes on a stick as a bribe, and later added the salute using stop-motion animation, one frame at a time. It took days. The monkey nailed it in the final cut and became the most expensive background performer in the movie. And just when you thought fruit bribery was the weirdest part of the shoot. Fact number 10. Ford filmed through a 103-degree fever. While filming in Tunisia, Harrison Ford caught a brutal stomach bug, along with most of the crew. In one scene, he was sweating so much the camera lens fogged up. Instead of resting, Ford powered through the desert heat, filming multiple scenes with a 103-degree fever. Spielberg later admitted they lost days of footage to heat stroke, food poisoning, and failed generators. But Indy? He just wiped his brow and kept running. Fact number 11. Indy's gunshot was recorded in a canyon with a .30-30. The deafening blast of Indy's revolver wasn't studio magic. It was a real Winchester .30-30 rifle fired in an open canyon in Utah. Sound designer Ben Burt layered that raw echo with desert reverb to make the pistol sound like a cannon. It had that gritty, untamed punch of a Western, like something out of a Clint Eastwood flick on late-night cable. The revolver itself was an antique, lovingly restored and kept under lock and key between takes. Because when your hero's fighting Nazis and ancient traps, the gun better sound like it matters. Fact number 12. The submarine scene used a real German U-boat from an old war movie. When Indy rides the Nazi sub, you're not seeing a model. That was a full-sized World War II U-boat prop borrowed from the 1980 film Das Boot. It didn't move an inch. They shot the entire sequence in a dry dock with strategic camera angles and fog to sell the illusion. Spielberg even reused leftover smoke canisters from Close Encounters. The ocean you saw? Just clever framing and some studio water tanks. If Spielberg had a nickel for every time he fooled us with fog, he could have funded Temple of Doom with change. Fact number 13. The mummy wraps came straight from Cecil B. DeMille's warehouse. The dried-up corpses in the Well of Souls? Most were leftover props from the 1956 epic The Ten Commandments. Paramount dug them out of cold storage, dressed them in tattered linen, and threw on some cobwebs for good measure. You weren't just watching Indy discover ancient tombs, you were seeing Hollywood history rot in real time. Spielberg later joked, some of those skeletons probably worked with Charlton Heston. And if that didn't give you goosebumps, wait till you find out who almost played Indy's dad. Fact number 14. Spielberg wanted Gregory Peck as Indy's dad. Before Sean Connery, the first name Spielberg wrote down to play Henry Jones Sr. was Gregory Peck. He wanted Atticus Finch in a tweed suit quoting Plato between whip cracks. But the chemistry didn't click. Connery came in, tossed the script, and improvised his way into history. That dry wit? All him. His line, "She talks in her sleep," wasn't written. It was a spur-of-the-moment joke. The studio wanted gravitas. Connery gave them Bond and a bow tie. Fact number 15. Sean Connery wrote his own jokes. Connery didn't just play Indy's dad, he rewrote him. He improvised the now famous "She talks in her sleep" line on the spot. Ford broke character. Spielberg kept the take. Connery's charm added the perfect 60s swagger to a 30s academic. You weren't just watching a character, you were watching James Bond crash an archaeology lecture. If you think that was slick, wait until you hear who almost played Salah. Fact number 16. Danny DeVito turned down Salah. Spielberg's first pick for Indy's loyal friend wasn't John Rhys Davies, it was Danny DeVito. CBS said no due to taxi commitments. DeVito had to walk away. Spielberg later joked, it would have been like Indy and Louis De Palma on an adventure. Instead, Rhys Davies brought gravitas and warmth that made Salah unforgettable. And just when casting settled down, the animals on set went full Looney Tunes.
Mr. Looney Tune.
Fact number 17. A camel bit the cinematographer. While filming Last Crusade, one of the camels bit director of photography Douglas Slocum. No warning, just chomped his leg mid-shot. Slocum didn't scream, he didn't stop. He limped to the monitor and kept working. He was 76 at the time. The crew said he was tougher than the stunt team. And speaking of animals, one almost ruined the entire desert finale. Fact number 18. A goat ate the final shooting schedule. On the final week of Raiders, a local goat wandered onto the set and ate the call sheet right off a clipboard. The assistant director chased it for 20 minutes. No backup copies. They had to rebuild the day's plan from memory. Spielberg just shrugged and said, "At least it wasn't the script." Hollywood in the 80s. 1 part movie magic, 2 parts barnyard chaos. Fact number 19. Ford did his own stunts and racked up injuries. Harrison Ford insisted on doing nearly all his stunts. The result? Torn ligaments, a bruised rib, and a dislocated shoulder, all in the same shoot. During the truck dragging sequence, his knee slammed into the tire frame. The pain? Real. The grit? Pure Ford. Spielberg begged him to use a double. Ford just growled, "Indy would never." And just when you thought that was commitment, wait till you hear what almost made it into theaters. Fact number 20, Indy survived a nuked fridge in an early draft. Long before Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the idea of Indy surviving a nuclear blast inside a lead-lined fridge existed in an unused draft for Last Crusade. Spielberg scribbled it in a notebook as a joke. Lucas thought it had potential. The crew, they begged him to leave it out. The idea was shelved until decades later when it crawled back into canon, proof that no idea in Hollywood ever truly dies, just gets buried in a warehouse next to the Ark. Bonus fact, Spielberg kept the fedora under lock and key. After filming Wrapped, Spielberg refused to let the iconic fedora go missing. He had it stored in a temperature-controlled case, logged with a museum-style tag, and kept in a private vault. If someone finds it, he said, they'll think it's cursed or priceless. Years later, Ford asked if he could borrow it for Halloween. Spielberg said no. Turns out some treasures really do belong in museums or locked in a director's garage. So if you grew up watching Indy outrun boulders, punch Nazis, and face ancient curses with a smirk and a whip, hit like, smash subscribe, and tell us in the comments which fact made you laugh, flinch, or time travel straight back to the 80s. Because in a world full of computer effects and cardboard heroes, there was once a man in a leather jacket who reminded us that adventure belongs to those who dare to chase it.